Joining me now from Capitol Hill is Senator Angus King, an independent from Maine and a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. So, Senator, what exactly is your committee doing differently than the House? And can you tell me anything about that closed-door meeting you just had?
I can't tell you anything about the meeting. I can tell you what we're trying to do is maintain this investigation on a fully bipartisan manner. We're talking with each other, we're consulting with each other, we're meeting practically daily, and our entire focus is, number one, to get to the bottom of this, and number two, to do it in a bipartisan and credible and transparent way so the American people will have confidence in whatever conclusions the facts lead us to. But your fundamental question is, what are we trying to do? We're trying to do this in a serious way, but also in a bipartisan way so that it has credibility when we get to the end of the road. Are you implying that's not what's happening in the House right now? Oh, I would never imply such a thing. No, I mean, everybody knows that the House has had their problems and that they have some divisions. The ranking Democrat has called for the chair to recuse himself, but I don't really want to comment on that. I think what we want to do is do it in such a way here that we're not going to have those kind of issues. And what does your committee hope to find out from Christopher Steele? Well, I'm not going to confirm or deny that is part of the investigation. I know you've got some sources on that. I'm not one of them. But we're going to be talking to anybody who we feel has relevant information to contribute to one of three questions that we're really looking at. One is, what did the Russians do? How did they do it in terms of the hacking of the Democratic National Committee, relationship with WikiLeaks and all of that? The second piece is, was there a relationship between the Trump campaign and the Russians during this period? And the third, Katie, that doesn't get much attention that I think is incredibly important is, we know the Russians tried to get into several or more than several state election systems, voting machines and registration lists, and that's a huge problem that I think we're going to have to focus considerable resources on and also figure out how to prevent it, because the information is they didn't change any voting results, but you know, they weren't doing it for fun. And so we have to be sure that doesn't happen in 2 years, 4 years, or 6 years. On that topic, the FBI director said it didn't change anything, but are you saying that there is evidence that the Russians were able to get into some machines? Well, there's evidence that they tried. That was noted in the January 6th report. It was a little piece of it, but there's no question that they tried. And I met this morning, as a matter of fact, with one of the country's experts on the vulnerability of our election system. It's pretty scary, and we've got to really be, and the states, this is a tricky area because the states generally control the election process, but, you know, the Russians don't care about states or borders or anything else. We have to help the states to defend themselves. Senator, I know you're not going to confirm that you guys are going to be talking to Christopher Steele, who is that British spy who compiled that dossier on the Trump campaign, but in a general sense, is somebody like that, somebody who was a well-respected agent in a foreign government, an ally of ours, who compiled information pertinent to your investigation, in a general sense, would that person be of interest to your committee? Anybody that has information that's relevant to this investigation is somebody that we want to talk to, and we want to get their information. We'll be able to assess the validity of it, but I'm not, as I say, I'm not going to confirm or deny we're going to talk to him or anyone else for that matter. But at the end of the road, at the end of this process, we're not going to leave any stones unturned. We want to get to the bottom of it. Again, it's important, Katie, that we do it in a way that's credible to both sides. If we issue a report that half the country dismisses as propaganda or fake news and the other half, you know, vice versa, that's not going to do any good. We've got to try to make this straightforward and honest. I'm sorry to interrupt, but is it possible to do that when we're seeing in the House is ongoing? Is it possible right now for this country to trust any
committee that has Republicans and Democrats, or does this need to go to an independent commission or potentially a special prosecutor just because of the way in which this country is divided right now?
Well, if criminal acts are found, it will go to a special prosecutor, I think, but that's a future step. We're talking about information gathering at this point. As far as the independent commission, that has a lot of appeal, but here's the problem. Somebody has to set it up, and somebody has to define how the members are going to be appointed, and they're going to be appointed by, generally in these situations, the Speaker of the House and the Majority Leader in the Senate and the Minority Leader and the President and all of that. So you'll end up with a bipartisan commission anyway, and you'll have to start over again, for example, with security clearances for the staff. I think you'd end up where we are now in the Senate 6 months from now or 8 months from now, and you'd have to start over. We have a bipartisan committee. It's very carefully balanced. It's 8 Republicans, 6 Democrats, and me. And so it's 8-7. It can one Republican who decides to change sides. It's 8-7 the other way. So it's a very solid committee. I have a great deal of confidence in the chair, the ranking member, and the rest of my. It's not a whitewash kind of operation. It's a pretty. They're strong opinions on that committee, and for that reason, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do as much of our work in public as possible, so that at the end of the process, people will say, yeah, we saw the evidence too, and we understand why they came to that conclusion.
Maine Senator Angus King, an independent member of the Senate Intel Committee. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thanks, Katie.